Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for your Mint sales training. Just want to say hello to everyone that's attending. We've got lots of diverse destinations here represented. We've got folks from Knoxville, Detroit, San Jose, Niagara Falls, USA, Cincinnati, it looks like Atlantic City, Stillwater, Sacramento, Puerto Rico. Yeah, looks like we've got a lot of folks on here. We're having more adding, so I don't want to call out everyone, but thank you everyone so much for attending, and we are looking forward to showing you around Mint today. So, quick introduction here if you haven't interacted with me, or you've probably already met Elaine, but in case you're new or just haven't had a chance to get to know her yet, we are your product engagement team at Destinations International. So I'm Alyssa Poland speaking here right now. I'm the product engagement manager, and my role is to assist you with any questions you have regarding our meetings and conventions related products. So those include Mint and the Event Impact Calculator, which is a separate product that we have separate trainings for. And I'll work with your team to make sure you're getting the most out of your product subscription benefits. And we are joined here today by Elaine Rothquist, our Senior Director of Product Engagement, who will give us a demo of the Mint database here in a minute.
Great. Hi, Alyssa.
All right. Sorry about that. So these, just to let everyone know, your Mint subscription also includes ORDA, the Overnight Room Demand Analyzer. We won't cover it in this training, but just so you know, you'll find that at the top of your Mint toolbar when you log into Mint. You'll see ORDA, so that's another tool you can play around in. And we do have a recorded training as well at any time if you're interested in learning about that. But just so you know, Mint is the booking histories database that your sales staff will use for prospecting, and ORDA is a recent addition which helps CVBs determine the total number of room nights an event generates, including rooms booked outside the block. Okay, so as I mentioned, Mint is the booking histories database, and it stands for Meetings Information Network. It's a shared repository of information on organizations and their meetings and events. It allows sales professionals, such as yourself, to prospect intelligently for group business, and then armed with valuable information about historical meetings details and future bookings, which are actually being reported by yourself and fellow destination organizations. Just to give you a little bit of background, Mint is actually over 100 years old, which is crazy. It was built on the concept of sharing information on meetings that rotate. So about 25 years ago, it became a database, and then 15 years ago, it became internet-based. And lastly, just over probably now 5 or 6 years ago, it became a transfer of information through CRMs. So you can use an API to connect to your CRM to Mint. Makes it a lot easier. Before I go on, I realized I forgot to mention in the beginning that we are recording this webinar. So we will be sending out the recording to everyone who attended, and then we can, of course, pass it along if you have anyone on your team who wasn't able to make it today. And then if you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to pop those in the chat box, and we'll be monitoring those throughout. So if you think of any questions as we go, please don't hesitate to ask, and we'll get to those at the end. So what is in the Mint database? We actually have two types of data going in there. So the first type is Mint bookings and histories, which are added by subscribing CVBs such as yourselves. And then we also have supplemental data from our vendor CBIS, that stands for Columbia Books Information Services. And we'll quickly go through what exactly that means and what it looks like in the database so that you can see it actually highlights which is data entered by CVBs versus data entered by that external vendor, just so that you know exactly what that stands for. Okay, so, and we'll show you an example in just a second here of there's actually like a little bit of color coding so you can tell what's what. But basically, the data is coming not only from bookings that you yourselves, sales professionals, are adding, but there's also that supplemental data added from our vendor CBIS. It's not just a merge, it's more supplementary. It enriches the system with new data and improves existing data. So just a little bit of statistics here to help you understand kind of like the vastness of the cleanup that they do in the system. In 2017, this outside vendor reviewed almost 22,000 organizations, researched almost 91,000 contacts, and added 26,000 contacts and 16,000 meetings into it. So it's just a huge, incredibly vast amount of information that they're cleaning and adding and editing to improve it, because it would be a lot to ask CVBs to be editing that many meetings. So we have them, they're like specifically trained to go in and be able to clean up the data and make it easier for you to use. And monthly, they are pushing thousands of updates to the Mint database. And our teams here are actually addressing data maintenance issues such as duplicates. So there's a lot of work going on in the background to make sure it's a really useful, user-friendly database for everyone. Just quickly, I don't want to go into too much detail here, but you'll see this blue line on the left is organization or information that was added by users such as yourselves at the CVB. And then the red line on the right shows data that was added by the external vendor CBIS. So it doesn't really matter. It's still useful data for you. It's just, we have had people ask, what does it mean when it says CBIS organization information? It just means it's the external vendor that's adding that data. So you know there's even more data than there would be if you took that out. You know, there wouldn't be as much data in there. So you don't have to really worry about it. Especially if you're new and you're just playing around in Mint, don't worry about that at all. Don't let that like throw you off. It's just additional data that's helping us supplement. So that's the only thing you really need to know. They're just constantly adding and auditing the data, researching meetings and organization histories to make it even better for you. And to give you kind of an example of why we even called in this external vendor to help improve our data, one example is missing information. So CVBs are adding what they have and what they know, and then our external vendor is adding additional supplementary data to kind of fill in the gaps. So you'll see if you look through the dates that we have on these meeting histories, if you look at the top, we've got 2015, 2014, 2013, and then you notice there's a gap where 2012 is missing for this annual convention and industrial exhibition. So here, CBIS, that external vendor, was able to find the 2012 information and add it in there. So that's just an example of something that occasionally happens. We'll have a missing year, and then this external database, data entry are able to add this additional year that they were able to find. Okay, so before we walk you through a demo of the actual Mint database, these are sort of just high level what you would be using the database for. There's essentially two different reasons why you would use Mint. And the first is finding a specific record. So we like to compare this to essentially like a Google search. So you're looking for a single account, you're looking up a single organization, contact, or meeting. So the examples here on the slide are maybe you met a planner at a trade show or sat next to someone on a plane, but you didn't get a business card. So maybe you know the planner's name or the planner's organization. You can type that right into the search bar at the top if you have kind of a more specific knowledge of what you're looking for. And then the second is the query builder. So this is a way of running reports. You can run by meetings that have occurred in your destination or in your comp set. So here examples are, you're kind of looking for, maybe you're attending a trade show in Chicago, for example, and you want to know what organizations are headquartered there that have previously met in your destination. So you can talk to those planners. So this is the query builder is that robust way of running reports. You can use that to prospect for a targeted list for potential business. You can search by room range, certain market segments. There's lots of varied criteria that Elaine will walk you through in the query builder. And then, let me see, I think that might be it. Here's one kind of like a silly before we get into the demo. This is a letter that was actually written by one of the larger planners, I guess, to make sure that the CVB knows to be self-educated before they reach out about, prospecting for business from this planner. So basically, this planner reaches out and says, you should know better. There's this Mint database that we know you have access to. You should be able to get more information before you even reach out. Because in this case, the salesperson reached out to the planner without realizing that the destination couldn't even handle that size of a meeting, if that makes sense. So basically, just to reiterate, the importance of why you're even using the Mint tool is to be self-educated before you're reaching out. Make sure that you're reaching out to organizations that you can actually handle their meetings, and you're really being able to serve their needs. All right, so now I'm going to pass it over to Elaine to get us started with the demo.
Okay.
Let me share your screen here.
Thank you, Alyssa. And if, as Alyssa mentioned, real detailed. Thank you, Alyssa. Let me share my screen. If you have any questions, please enter them in the question box, and we'll sure to address those. And there we go. Great. And deal with any scenario you guys have that you want to ask us. So thanks again. Alyssa gave a really great detailed background and everything in Mint. We'll send this, as we said. You're seeing my screen okay? Yeah, great. Mm-hmm. So this should look familiar, and I know I recognize some of the names on the list that are here with us. Thank you. And some are new. So it's a good refresher, or it's a good brand new introduction to Mint. This is what it looks like when you're logged in. Many of you, for what we're doing today, would very much be over in Mint because we're searching. You may use your CRM to do some entering on that side, but you do actually have to come directly into the Mint website at this point in time to run queries and to do these kind of broader searches in here. But I'll kind of like tag off what Alyssa said here on the 2 reasons to use Mint. And there's the kind of going in when you know there's something you're looking for. You have a real specific person you're looking for, organization you're looking for, a meeting. You may not know everything about it or even exactly how it's spelled, but you can start with what we call the Google search bar of Mint. So this upper bar up here is going to help you bring back results on anything that it matches. So I could have just even actually typed in destinations, but in this case, I use our organization as an example. I'll look at our record. I'm going to put in, as much as I know, okay, Destinations International. I want to know more about them. I'll click search, and it's going to bring back any organizations that meet that criteria of that name. It will actually bring back, if you're searching for a contact or a meeting, if there was a meeting that had the name Destinations International in it, etc. It would bring back any of those in categories. One thing you don't have to worry about where it says items in progress. You would only see things that your destination, whoever your admin is, might have a few things they haven't finished entering. You guys would actually not see all this. I'm seeing it because we are Destinations International. But right here in the results, in the organizations matching the criteria, I click right into it. And this is where you would determine at this point, is this the group that you were looking to research? It may or may not be, but where we're going to go through a profile right now, I'll show you everything that is captured in Mint, and I'll point out what has been put in by Mint and then what we have as the supplemental data. So we land on an organization profile, and you're going to have on the top here all of the really detailed address, phone, fax, website you can click right over to. You'll even see, obviously, the market segment and some coding. This sometimes doesn't work for me. I'll preface by saying that, but there it did. Okay, you can click on updates, and that will actually show you, if you're curious, when the record was originally created, when it was last updated. You can even actually click into a change log, and this is where I sometimes get an error, and I just did. Okay, but for the most part, you can actually click into that and even almost see who recently updated it and in what way. So it is a shared database. As Alyssa mentioned, we have 130 subscribers plus. So there are a lot of hands in there. So we just have to keep that in mind. We always encourage, please send us anything you see that's a question, that might be a duplicate, that might be inaccurate. If you don't have those editing rights, if you know the person at your CVB that does, they can make some of those changes, or you can always send us a note from the page where you're working, scroll to the very bottom and just enter it right in there. It gets sent to myself and Alyssa, and we have a process in place to help with that. So again, that's how you're going to look at the main information about the organization. You'll scroll below, and this is where you see that supplemental information. It has the red bar. This was added by CBIS. And this just gives even that much more detail about Destinations International. It actually gives a description about the organization. It says the year it was founded. They get into like what type of organization it is. It's slightly different from our market segments. Staff size. So a lot of just extra information for you as you're prospecting in here or about to reach out to someone to help you know more about their organization. If you keep scrolling, you'll see all the contacts that we have associated with that organization, what their title and email. If there was a management organization that worked with this association or corporation to help with their meetings, they'd be listed here. If you keep scrolling, it does a nice little summary of all the known meeting preferences about this organization. So remember, they could have multiple meetings in here, but this is kind of a summary of what type months they meet in, what days. You're not going to know for any given meeting which this is, but you'll at least know that they do travel to these different locations. They may or may not go internationally. What their attendance ranges are just in general for the whole entire organization for their meetings. And then again, this layers over top of it some more detailed information from CBIS and what they know about their meetings. Continue to scroll down and you'll see all of the meetings that are associated with that organization. We can just peek at one. We'll go into our annual convention. So you can drill in specifically to the annual convention for Destinations International, and you're going to get start day, how frequently it meets, how many days, what is their attendance range, the peak room range. Again, the more specific to that meeting, summary information about the month that meeting will meet, any kind of notes about the group, and then who are the contacts for that meeting, and then where has it been booked for the future, however far out it is, and then where are the histories. So as you can see, lots and lots of history. And so some of these groups, it means it's been in here a while, they're going to go fairly far back in history. And throughout this system, that's what you do. You can keep drilling in by clicking on these hyperlinks and see all the detail around the convention. The history on this meeting for the year 2017. So you're talking room pickup, largest meeting attendance, simultaneous meeting room. So it gets extremely detailed. You can click to view a post-event report on any given specific meeting, email it to yourself, email it to others. Comes out as a nice snapshot of all the information I was just showing you on the screen. So the full organization information, some general meeting information, who the main planner is. In this case, it's Greg on our team. And it'll give the last 4 years of history. And if there's any future bookings, so as we scroll down. And this too, again, can be emailed to yourself. So it looks a little maybe daunting here on the screen, but it comes out as a nice HTML PDF document that you can send to yourself and to colleagues at hotels. We encourage you to share this information once you've vetted it and feel good about it. That is what your role is as a CBB, to be sending on this great information. We want you to make sure you feel good about it before you send it on. So then just click back through kind of the cookie crumbs, as we call them. I'll go back to our main record. And lastly, just kind of show that as we continue to scroll, I had clicked into a meeting to look in more detail, but you would have still seen all the future bookings and all the histories for everything we do. And then CBIS, it doesn't get more detailed than this, but again, it's just nice to see they already know where are we going to be, in 19 coming up. They would have known, maybe some different things going on. So they'll add layering on top of what we know. So that's where you're looking for something specific. You're looking for a person specific, you can do that the same way. Looking for a meeting specific, you can do it the same way. It'll take you kind of deeper down into the record. Before I run some queries, which we'll do in a second, I also just want to make sure to point out that on the left-hand side, you can also look at what's considered a full list of all the organizations in the system. You can sort this off market segment. You can actually even click to say My DMO Only, and it would show only ones that your CBB or DMO entered, actually, as a matter of fact. And you can even then go, I'm looking for sporting athletic events that begin with the letter P. So, the reason for using this, we were asked just early on when we kind of rebuilt the system a few years ago that people would just find it useful. Although it's a lot of data in one place, it was still just another way we look at it to get at the data or to see what's in the system. Because if you scroll to the bottom, you can see that you can actually sort it, that there's actually 42,000, close to 43,000 organizations in the system, but it is initially here sorted by date. So today is the 26th, and as you can see, there's already a few things. They were most likely not just added new, but something and someone was in the system already today, 8 different times here, touching these records and adding to them. So it's just another way to even kind of go look and click on them that way and go, what's been recently maybe added? What's been recently updated? Same thing goes for the meetings list. It works exactly the same, or I didn't click on it, there we go. Again, looking at all the meetings by market segment, by letter that they begin, one's only your DMO added, and I sort, again, the list off the headers, or you can scroll quickly to further down into the list by clicking the arrow keys here, and the same thing for the contacts. So again, looking at ones only added in the last 6 months, only ones your organization put in, but things, again, that just were entered today. So that's just another way to look at the data. Again, something you're looking for by clicking in the search bar, just curious about all the orgs, meetings, and contacts that are in the system by using these buttons. And then we'll go over to Query Builder, which is used, as Alyssa pointed out, for different scenarios. This is used for really kind of digging in and going, I'm really curious. I have these parameters that I need to fill. We have an open year that we're needing to fill. I'm going to a trade show in Chicago, and I want to have some extra time there. I want to see who's headquartered in Chicago that would fit some criteria. So we'll run a few here just to show you how that works and how your results come out. And then philosophically, Alyssa and I were actually talking about this. Everyone can kind of go about Query Builder their own way. Some like to come in and start really broad with their search and put in very limited parameters and see what they get back, and they might get a massive list back, and I'm going to do an example of that in a second. And then they can take that list, run it to Excel, and kind of sort through it on their own. Or you start out really detailed. You know exactly what you're looking for. You're going to put in real specific parameters, but you're going to get back a lot less. But it is going to hopefully be exactly what you're looking for and very, very specific. But we don't want people to go in and get frustrated that they see 30 results. Well, but those 30 results are probably going to be pretty spot on to what you're looking for. Mm-hmm. And then you can remove parameters and get your list bigger. So it just depends on the way you want to go about it. I will start with doing pretty specific, and we'll see what we get back. And then I'll show you how if we remove something, the list will get bigger. Again, we could go about it either way. So what I'm going to do here is I'm putting in that you're looking for organizations headquartered in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia areas. Many of you know it's a hotbed of associations in this area. So you put that in, but you're really going to kind of drill it down. You don't want every market segment. You're looking specifically for educational and, let's say, health and medical. Pretty broad. I mean, those are pretty big categories, but again, it would depend on how they're segmented out or how people selected the market segments. And then the second section helps you figure out where have they met or will they meet, or kind of willing to meet. So the beginning is saying, well, where are they headquartered? But then you'll go, you know what, you're coming from the California, Oregon, Washington State. Let's say you want to kind of know they're headquartered there, but they've met in or going to be meeting on the West Coast. Again, pretty specific. And then you get into a lot of detail here if you so choose. You can look at, well, what months do they meet? I only want to look at ones that are meeting in the summer. I want to only look at certain start days or open year. I only want to see ones that have open years. I'm not going to start marking some of this stuff, but you have the option to really get into this kind of I only want to look at ones that start on certain days. For our purposes, I'm going to say I'm looking at groups that have 500 to 1,000 in attendance. The next two categories we like to point out, and I'm not going to put them in my query right now, you can put in a range of peak rooms, reserved or actual, but we have here, we pointed out that you need to know that that's only going to give you Mint data. The supplemental CBIS data will not pull into that query only because they don't track actual pickup in peak rooms. They're only looking at the attendance in their numbers. So where our suggestion there would be you can run it then twice. You can run one, I'm not going to put in peak rooms, but you could run it again with peak rooms and know you're only going to get Mint data if you're really interested in the peak rooms. And then you can remove them and run it just off attendance to make sure you get the CBIS data. So you're not limited. You could sit in here all day long, run 100 queries, save them all, and slice and dice it and do what you want with it. You're not limited. You can just keep kind of changing up your searches. I'm going to show you how you can save it. So I hit enter. Again, now I came with 64 meetings found from 48 different organizations. I'm going to, save it. I'm going to call it DC, Maryland, Virginia, Education and Medical Associations meeting on the West Coast or something like that. I mean, that's super detailed, but you can be that detailed. And then you can put the date or your name, but it's actually going to tag it that way. So you'll hit save. That is saved now in there for everyone at your association to see. Your CBB. If you go back and run it in a month, it'll run the same thing and just put new information in that has come into the system since then. So I saved it. I'm going to export it and show you guys how the results, I have to select at least. You can select as many as you want. You can look at the list first and say, okay, I only want this one, this one, this one, or you just click, in our case, all, export to Excel, and you're going to get a list that is very detailed because it gives you everything. It will give you everything you saw in that long document I showed you, or page I showed you that had like Destinations International, all of the means, etc. So you're going to have, and I don't ever actually know how many columns, but it's everything. It's the organization name, where it was sourced from, the meeting name. But again, that's the beauty of Excel. You can take it now, save it on your desktop or, your home office, whatever it may be, and take this information and really sort it and filter it for what you're looking for. And so then just to kind of step back, we can go back to the query. And now we can just take out, I don't care where they're going to meet. I'm seriously only interested in knowing that they're headquartered in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area because that's my market. That's where I'm going to be or something for a trade show. And you could even open it up and say, well, let's not open up too much yet. Just by taking that out, we'll hit search. And let's see what we got. There we go. So now we've exponentially kind of increased what we have. We have 473 meetings from 214 different organizations that are health and medical still or educational associations in the DC area that also have a range of 500 to 1,000 attendees. So there you've gotten your list a little bigger. And then the last thing we'll take before we see if there's any questions, or I can run other different queries for people, is we'll take out, let's just take out as an example, I don't even care what their market segment is. Again, I just want to know that they're in the DC, Maryland area, and that, again, their range is 500 to 1,000, and it's now enormous. 2,173 meetings from almost 1,000 different organizations. So you can imagine if then we next step took out the attendance range, which you maybe kind of don't want to do that because you're going to know what fits in your destination, you'd get even more. So we went real specific to broad. You can come back and do it the other way. But you really, I think, for Query Builder, just have to get yourself in there using it. We always say that because that's the only way you'll get comfortable with it. We have a great, on our home screen, we have a great, I want to say, 30-minute thing to listen to, right? How to conduct a Mint query. Well done by our previous, who have been our managing director with us, Christine Shimasaki, did a full how to conduct a Mint query, so that should help you. And then we have other how-tos up here. So it's fun to play with. The saved ones come over here and you get to see what date they were run. As you guys can see, I just created this one. You can go in and run any others you want at any given time and edit it. But just remember, you'd be using them as an organization and kind of sharing them. So if you end up writing over one, which is fine, and making changes, just resave it. So I'll kind of pause there. Ask Alyssa if there's been any questions that have come in, if anyone wants me to run anything else.
Yeah, so thanks, Elaine. We did actually just have one question come in, and that one is regarding the market segments in Mint. And this is, how do you determine the market segments in Mint? For example, the Association of Government Accountants is listed as trade, commercial, business, but Government Finance Officers Association is listed as government, public admin, public affairs. Just want to get an idea, since we deploy on market segment and these two government-related associations are differently listed. And I was just going to say, my first thought is, I was actually going to bring back, when I share my screen again, we're working on improving the Mint system. We actually just launched a Mint super user group of some of the kind of like highest users of the tool to get together and come up with different ways to improve and see what people think would be useful for their sales teams. And one of our huge tasks is to kind of pare down the market segments that we have. As you saw when Elaine was sharing the demo, there are a lot of market segments. So that's something that we're working on to make it clearer, easier to use, and really hone in on exactly what you're looking for. So I know maybe that's not super helpful for right now, but that is like on our list to have done. I would say by like around maybe January, we'll have a lot of updates to share at that point, after we've made some improvements with our super user group. So I don't know, Elaine, did you have anything?
I mean, like Alyssa said, I think what we're struggling with, and I can, the market segments are good, and a lot of people follow them. They're really detailed. They're listed when you're in Mint under the house too. There's about 27 total. I want to say there's maybe like 19 or more associations. Then there's like 10 corporate, or I'm probably saying my math wrong, 8 or 9 corporate, and then we do have some catch-all. We're trying to clean up through we don't want a lot of things to land in an other or non-DMAI, but what I say we're struggling with is we're trying to decide if we should lock down the market segments, which we maybe kind of need to go that way, and not allow it to be changed back and forth. So we will often call it the Wikipedia system, which Mint really is, that the minute someone, which is beautiful about it or great about it, someone can pick something, and then someone the next day can go in and change it. So what we've talked about already, and we're going to talk with this super user group about it, is probably agreeing to maybe possibly some new market segments, as Alyssa mentioned, maybe either streamlining or making them clear. But then once selected, going through, it's a pretty daunting task, but assigning market segments and then not allowing them to be changed. There would be the option to change, but it would have to get approved. So it wouldn't be as if we'd say you could never change it. If there was a good case to be made that it should be changed, absolutely. But we're not going to have this kind of back and forth, because I do believe that that's where a lot of that came from, that you're seeing two similar things that actually really should both be in a pretty obvious similar category, and they're not. And it might just be because obviously everyone might have a slightly different way they define things. So that's the long answer, but we are well aware it's probably one of our hottest items and questions that come up all the time. And we want to try to have a more standardized, unified way for most everyone to agree on. And that's hard to do, but we think we can kind of get there. So that's the answer there.
So yeah, I would maybe recommend in your case to start broader, and then you can, like Elaine was showing, maybe search for multiple market segments, and then maybe just export it to Excel and then kind of play with it that way and see how you can kind of narrow things down more specifically. But in that case, I'd probably start broad, and you can go to that section that Elaine was just showing on the screen if you want to see those market segments defined.
Yes.
And then I don't see any other questions for the moment, so I'm going to take the screen
back. You want me to
back.
take that back? And I was going to also mention, while Alyssa's doing that, you want me to just hand it back, or you're just grabbing it? As she mentioned, you can, I know it could be frustrating. Oh, there you go, you got it back. Okay. So it could be very frustrating to be searching off a market segment and then miss something. So, so just like Alyssa said, I would be certain maybe if you think things sound somewhat similar in that list when you're in Query Builder, to select maybe a few of the choices or run them as two different queries just to make sure you're not missing certain things in it when you're limiting your search by market segment. Yes. Great.
And actually, just as I took the screen back, I noticed there's one more question, and that is there a way for the query to show the booking ID that is uploaded from the CRM?
That's a good question. I've never heard that, so we'll write that down. I mean, that's probably something we just need to ask the CRMs about. Okay. So we have that written down, that question. But currently, is it to search off that, you mean, or just to show it in the result?
It sounds like just show in the results in the query. But if you,
yeah, in that big document I shared everyone, I do think it shows at least our Mint codes. We wouldn't necessarily have the CRM ID.
Yeah.
It doesn't show up in our, but I do believe that big Excel document shows, I know we're on your screen, but I'll look but I do believe that shows any Mint codes. I'm actually in it, yeah, IDs but it's not gonna ever probably show the, CRM ID.
And we can follow up with that if you have more questions about the query. If you want to just send me a quick email afterwards. I'm going to send the recording follow-up to everyone after we log off the webinar if you just want to follow up if you have any other questions. And that goes for everyone. If you think of any questions after we get off the webinar, as that tends to always happen, you don't think about it until you get to process for a few minutes, but feel free to just respond to my email if you have any questions. And then quickly, I just have 2 more slides here. And everyone, hopefully you can see my screen. Just to let everyone know, we do offer Mint admin trainings, which is a totally different side of Mint, which is the input. So that's the staff members that are actually adding the meetings and then following up after the meeting occurs to create the history for it. So that's a separate meeting. A separate training. We have those recorded already. So if anyone is interested in learning that side of it, definitely we can pass that along to you. But this slide is just to kind of reiterate that the importance of this being a shared resource, and we need to keep it in good shape and maintain the quality of the database for everyone that uses it. So essentially, Mint can only be as valuable as the data that we are inputting it. So we thank everyone for consistently contributing their information. It's really the foundation of your individual sales efforts and builds on the industry reputation for booking quality business for our hotel partners and stakeholders. So when you did originally subscribe to Mint, you would have filled out we call them the Mint conditions, and that's essentially your pledge to maintain this valuable database and help us provide maximum benefit for all who use it. Just quickly, I wanted to review those 3 kind of parameters for what kind of meetings are being added to Mint.
Great.
And those are meetings that use 50 or more rooms on a peak night, or if you're using an API, that can be just 25 rooms. The second parameter is that they are held on a repeating or regularly scheduled basis. And lastly, that they rotate within at least one state or province. So those are the kinds of meetings that are going to be added to Mint, just so that you have an idea of what you're looking at. And then, as Elaine already mentioned throughout the demo, if you have any comments or you notice duplicate records or you have any issues in the database, there's a comment box on the bottom of every page. So feel free. That will actually tag the location in Mint that you're at the time, so that'll help us easily find the duplicate or address the question that you have. And that is all I had for today. Thank you, Elaine, for giving us that fantastic demo. And if anyone has any questions or comments or any ideas for things they'd like to see in our query builder or ways they think that we should improve the tool, definitely feel free to respond to my email after I send that recording. And thank you everyone for being on today. Have a great weekend, and we look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you.